So a YouTuber named Sheev Talks made this video about Across the Spider-Verse, basically saying that the movie ruined Peter B's character, and that he's very out of character coming off of Into the Spider-Verse. Before I get into this response, there's a couple things I want to preface. One, if you disagree with anything said in this video and you would like to discuss it, there's a Discord link in the description so we can voice call, or you can join one of my Disagreement Day streams hosted by me and SK. We try to do these every weekend. Number two, the person I'm responding to still thinks Across the Spider-Verse is a great movie, but he just has issues with this part of the movie. And then finally, number three, I want to give a shout out to both SK and Crisis for helping me out with a couple parts of this video. So with all that said, let's get into it.
Now, of course, the most obvious thing that irks me about Peter is the way he handles his job as a parent, which again is especially frustrating given the fact that him having a baby represents the culmination of his arc in the last movie, and I was really excited to see what they would do with that here. When he finally shows up a little over halfway through the film, we're introduced to Mayday Parker, his and MJ's infant daughter. I'm not entirely clear on if the timelines of each respective universe are exactly parallel, since for Miles it's been about 16 months, but for Peter it seems to have been a little bit longer given her age. Either way, Mayday is definitely still a baby, but she does clearly appear to have inherited her dad's spider powers, which is something that'll be worth keeping in mind as we get into this. Peter even made her own web shooters so that she can swing around, which is questionable. The broader point I'm about to make here is that Peter is extremely irresponsible when it comes to how he parents Mayday, and I think this is just one of a few microcosms that serves as an example of a larger issue. It's not very safe to give a baby with superpowers access to the means to swing around wherever she wants, even if her powers also grant her at least some level of durability. And no, Peter addressing the fact that it wasn't a good idea doesn't really change the fact that it was bad.
I knew I was gonna regret making her that web shooter. I shouldn't have done it. That's an actual mistake.
That's what we call lamp shading, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not irresponsible for Peter to give Mayday a web shooter, especially if he's going to be supervising her. She can't just swing around wherever she wants. And she also has super baby durability. By this logic, it's irresponsible for a parent to let a normal kid go play on a trampoline because there's a possibility the kid could break their neck or something. Or it's irresponsible to let your kid draw with markers or pencils because they might start licking, eating, or chewing on them, or they might stab themselves with a pencil. Parents aren't irresponsible for letting their children do things that even have a slight risk to it, especially if that stuff is supervised. And yes, Peter saying it was a mistake was obviously a joke, and it technically is lampshading, but even though a piece of media makes a joke of a concern someone might bring up about the part of that piece of media, that doesn't mean it's actually a valid criticism of the piece of media. For example, in Kung Fu Panda 1, they make multiple jokes about how Po is fat, he's a fat panda with no experience, but it's obviously not a valid criticism of that movie to say that he had plot armor against Tai Lung when you actually analyze what's going on in the film.
Now, it does seem worth getting into exactly the nature of Mayday's abilities since it is relevant. Like I said, she has spider powers, which I would imagine gives her a lot of the same advanced reflexes and reaction times as you typically see from a spider person, as well as a lot of the same agility and a good deal of durability. Though, seeing as she's a baby, I don't imagine any of that is nearly to the same extent as a fully grown or even teenage spider person. So while Peter, Miles, or Gwen can take pretty severe damage and walk away fine, I'm gonna assume the same can't be said for Mayday. We frankly don't have any way of determining exactly how much she can take. It might be as much as your average adult human, maybe more, maybe less. Though it's probably safe to assume that if she were to, for example, fall out of Peter's baby carrier while he's hanging from the ceiling and Peter isn't able to jump down in time to catch her, that would probably really hurt or injure her, if not outright kill her.
That's a nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
So you say that the superhuman durability isn't as relevant as any of the other teenage or adult spider people, but you have no references in the film that actually show that age is an effect on the extent of their superhuman abilities. Peter B is a lot older than Gwen and Miles, and they all seem to be around the same level of power in terms of their physical abilities. You show a clip from TASM 2 as if it correlates at all when the context of both movies is laid out, and you show a clip of Peter catching Mayday when she falls as if this proves anything either. For all we know, he's just trying to be protective of her. This would be like saying I can't survive falling from 10 feet because someone caught me when I landed. And even if Mayday's superhuman abilities aren't to the level of the other older spider people, this would still be irrelevant because even if she had the same level of durability as, let's say, like a regular adult human in this universe, we still see, based on the physics of the previous films, that the physics in this universe, just like many other comic book things, live action or animated, are exaggerated and people can usually survive things that normal humans in the real world cannot. And this would still be irrelevant even with the points brought up later in the video.
So with that in mind, I wonder if we think it'd be a good idea for Peter to bring her along with him during this incredibly intense, fast-paced chase sequence where several superpowered beings are trampling over each other trying to capture Miles. Yeah, I don't think so either.
All right. I'm sorry for doing this. This is bad parenting.
Stop lampshading! The defenses I've heard for this are interesting, to say the least. But I suppose if we want to get into this, we should lay out all the context and determine what I think the best choice probably is if you're Peter. He wanted to bring Mayday along because he was hoping to get a moment alone with Miles, have him hold the baby to calm him down, and try to have a heart-to-heart with him to get him to see reason about the whole letting his dad die thing. You know, as you do. Okay, so I'm not a father, so maybe I just have no idea what I'm talking about, but I somehow don't think I'd feel safe with bringing my baby along during this dangerous spider chase and carrying her around through all these narrow spaces as I chase Miles through this factory, just so that I can have a heart-to-heart with the guy. I'm sure Peter cares about Miles, but the priority of his child's safety has to come first, even above all that, surely. I mean, he just never struck me as the kind to be so brazen with the lives of the people he cares about is all, especially his own flesh and blood. And you really don't even need her here to say what you need to say to Miles. Again, he wanted her there because he hoped she'd be able to help de-escalate the situation, but given the things we've just listed, I think you're better off just giving him the speech without her.
Peter bringing her on this chase still isn't really him being irresponsible, even if the film again makes a joke out of it. Because as we go throughout the chase, Peter is consistently keeping his distance and not really trying to engage in any kind of physical conflict. He's also holding Mayday really tightly when he needs to, so as to make sure that Mayday doesn't fall out, as well as keeping his distance from the other spider people when they might have a higher risk of bumping into him. And Peter is a very experienced Spider-Man. He knows how to maneuver his way through things so that Mayday won't be hurt by something. And I think that's a very reasonable thing for the audience to assume. So if he believes that Mayday will help calm Miles down and de-escalate things so that an entire universe doesn't get destroyed, then yes, I think he might take a small risk, a very small risk, of not being able to keep Mayday as safe as possible, especially with all the factors that I just laid out.
At any rate, once this plan fails and the chase proceeds again, it should be clear to Peter that this isn't gonna work and he should go ahead and take Mayday somewhere less dangerous. So even just accepting that he's brought her along this far, there are two courses of action that I would recommend next. Number 1, take her home. Literally just use your fancy little wristwatch to head back to your own dimension, lay her down in her crib, and then come back to rejoin the chase. I've heard it argued that this is a bad idea because we're shown how long it takes to dimension hop, so by the time he gets back, the chase might have moved miles away, and he'll have no idea how or where to find them. Which is an interesting point to make given that all the spider people chasing Miles are communicating through earpieces, and Peter is connected to that network, so I don't think he would have had that much trouble figuring out where they all were, if it wasn't already obvious just by scanning the city and seeing a sea of Spider-Men all gathered in one spot. But also, it really doesn't take that long from what we're shown. I don't imagine the chase will have even moved all that far by the time he gets back to Miguel's dimension. And option 2, just swing her back to the Spider Society headquarters real quick, leave her under the supervision of Spider-Bite, and then go join the chase, which is what you should have done anyway, Peter. If you're afraid of her going off on her own while you're not there to protect her, fucking web her up or something.
1, Peter is literally still trying to de-escalate both parties' emotions in this scenario. I don't know why you would assume he would just stop trying. And guess what? This literally did work during their talk. He calmed Miles down. The only reason it escalated back again was because of the call that Peter got on his watch in the middle of their conversation. 2, if Peter just leaves in the middle of this chase then comes back doing either of the options you listed, this takes time away from the chase, hence giving them a huge head start over him, and not giving him as many opportunities to try and de-escalate either party's emotions. And we literally see the other spider people and how far they are lagging behind. So if that was Peter lagging behind even farther, he wouldn't have had any opportunities to get what he wants. And 3, you literally brought up earlier, and we are literally shown that time works differently in other dimensions. So we don't know how long Peter would have been gone for. And then 4, I've already established how he's not being irresponsible throughout the chase, so either way, your points are still irrelevant.
I recognize that that's kind of cruel, but it's a lot less cruel and dangerous than taking her with you on the back of a bullet train going God only knows how fast and heading straight toward outer space. I don't understand how anyone can defend this.
It doesn't really matter how fast the train is going or if he's going to space. Once again, as established previously, Peter is playing it smart and keeping his distance. And he's also a very skilled and experienced spider person. And 2, if they're literally about to hit the point where they're about to enter space, Peter can just jump off. Like he does literally at the end of the chase, where he catches up with Miguel right before Miles leaves. And guess what? Mayday is still doing just fine.
Let's take another look at what we talked about with Spider-Man's superhuman durability. Across several continuities, we've seen examples of Spider-Man being able to withstand impressive amounts of punishment, and yet there are still very clear limits to what Peter can withstand before injuring himself. Results are likely to vary depending on the version we're talking about, and in the specific case of these films, there do appear to be some level of cartoon physics at play with what certain characters are able to do that they realistically shouldn't be capable of. So there is some wiggle room here, but it's important that we have those clear limits so that we understand generally what our main characters can withstand. And we're shown in the previous film that a much younger and more physically fit version of Peter is still capable of being badly injured and eventually killed if he takes strong enough hits. The film is also treating it as though they're high enough up that even for a spider person, it would be deadly to fall from this height. The only reason it's not for Miles or Miguel is because Miguel has a suit that allows him to guide his falls, and Miles is presumably latching onto flying cars like he did when he initially escaped the tower. So even though people like to defend this by saying she has superpowers, I think it's fair to assume that if Peter were to accidentally drop her, she would die. Oh, but Peter wouldn't drop her, and even if he did, he could easily catch her because he's Spider-Man. This is a situation where Peter is hardly in control of all the variables. If something happens, like, say, Miles blasting Miguel with a big burst of electricity, sending him flying back and crashing right into multiple Spider-Men down below, causing them to lose their grip on the train, there is absolutely no way Peter can guarantee Mayday's safety. Nor does being Spider-Man automatically mean you're going to be able to react and move quickly enough to save someone who's falling to their death, especially when you're this high up and the train is moving as quickly as it is. By the time Peter even jumps to rescue her, she might have already bashed her head in on one of these tunnel edges. Peter also has no idea just how strong Miles actually is, so there's no way of judging how powerful the blast is going to be when he does it to Miguel. For all he knows, he and Gwen are well within the danger zone and would be sent flying, possibly even sustaining some injury that weakens Peter and makes it harder for him to react in time to save his daughter.
Yes, I agree. Any spider person can die from taking a certain amount of damage. No one is contending this. But you say the film is treating this as if the spider people fall, they will die. But based on what exactly? In fact, when they fall, the film treats it as the exact opposite. Because when they do jump off the train, they end up just fine because of their physical abilities and web shooters. And if Miles can latch onto something after falling from a high height and swing from it, then around the same amount of force that would be generated from landing on the ground would be equivalent to the amount of force his arm would have to support if he swung from a car he latched onto after falling from that high. And also, another more probable reason either party would be worried about falling in this situation is because for Miles, he needs more time to draw out the spider people farther, and from Miguel's perspective, he would be getting farther away from Miles. And another thing to bring up is falling from terminal velocity, which is the fastest a human being can fall from the sky, ranges from around small building levels of energy to wall levels of energy. If you don't know what that is, I'll just put it up on the screen. But that is equivalent to the amount of force that Miles would have needed to be able to survive to tank the explosion at the end of Into the Spider-Verse when the collider exploded. And this was also a weakened version of Miles at that who survived that explosion. So if the power scaling of the characters in this universe is consistent, then none of the prominent spider people in this movie would die from falling this high. And again, you still haven't proven that Mayday is so much weaker than any of the other spider people. I don't care that she's a baby, she's still superhuman. And you say that Peter can't control all the variables like Miles shooting off Miguel and crashing into him, but he quite literally can and is mitigating that risk to be as low as possible. Hence why he's keeping his distance from the other group of spider people and Miguel and Miles. Also, you say that he doesn't know how powerful Miles is, but he obviously has a very good estimate given that he would assume Miles would have used all his power to break out of the containment unit that holds anomalies. And guess what? When that happened, he was far enough away from Miles, just like he is on the train, to the point where he can keep his bearings and keep Mayday safe is that if that was to happen, even though he's farther away on the train than he was in the canon event room. The only reason the other spider people and or Miguel ever got sent flying backwards or they were disoriented was because they were closer to the blast in the canon event scene. And another risk he accounts for is Miguel flying backwards, hence him keeping his distance. This not only highly mitigates any risk of not having enough time to react, but if either of them gets sent flying backwards, someone falling backwards like that and them moving towards them is at a very generous highball at least 2 times slower than bullets, and that is being generous. The only reason the other spider people even likely get hit by Miguel falling is because they don't have a lot of room to maneuver and they're all bunched around on top of each other.
Plus, even if Peter was pretty confident in his ability to save Mayday in any such event, that's still not an excuse to bring her into any dangerous situation. Like, I'm not Spider-Man, but I'm pretty confident that if I held a baby over a fire, I'd be fully capable of ensuring that I don't accidentally drop them into it. But that doesn't suddenly make it a good idea for me to do that, even if I think holding the baby over the fire is the only way to help someone I care about.
This is a really bad comparison because of the last sentence that you literally just debunked yourself with. But we've already established why Mayday was even here in the first place. You yourself even established that. And I already established that Peter is competent enough and is playing it safe so as to mitigate any possible harm coming to Mayday. This is like saying someone is a bad parent because they walked across a busy street while holding their baby, as if there aren't easy ways to mitigate the risk of being hit by a car, or if someone drives with their child in a car, even though car crashes happen very frequently. You can say things have a risk, but when you put in the context, that risk can be bigger or smaller depending on it. In this case, it's not a very big risk. Peter being Spider-Man is inherently a risk to leave Mayday and MJ without a husband and a father. Is Peter character assassinated for that as well? Is Toothless character assassinated in How to Train Your Dragon 2 for dangling Hiccup over an edge even though he could easily save him if he accidentally dropped him? Is Hiccup character assassinated at the end of How to Train Your Dragon 3 for flying with his children on the back of his dragons?
However, it's also worth noting a few extra things. The first of which is that when he eventually does bring Mayday home, we finally meet MJ and she gives us this line.
Peter, did you bring our baby to another fight?
I'm sorry, another? Are we implying this has happened before? Let's pretend for even a second that the context surrounding him bringing her along to the spider chase was in any way justified. Am I to believe that every other time he's involved this poor baby in a fight, there just wasn't any other option but to endanger her life? Every instance of this happening has justified context. Really. Because as absurd as that is, even if that is the case, then I no longer want to hear any of you say Peter was justified in bringing her to the Spider Society headquarters to begin with. Clearly, this is not a safe environment for a child, as many have argued, just because there are hundreds of Spider-Men there to protect her in the event of an attack. Because apparently there have been multiple moments where push came to shove.
The line from MJ and how you frame it once again is making things sound worse than they actually are or could be. We don't even know the context for what MJ is talking about. For all we know, Peter was walking down the street with Mayday one time and stopped a small mugging while he had Mayday with him. This isn't a major risk that would put Mayday's life in very much danger, if barely at all. You frame the lack of context we get as if he brought Mayday to go fight the Green Goblin or something, and you say it's not safe for him to bring Mayday to the Spider HQ even though there are literally hundreds of spider people there to fight and heavily mitigate any risk and bring up some mystery moments where push came to shove. Ah, yes, what a brilliant argument. By this logic, any police officer that drives their kid to school in their squad car or brings their kid into a police precinct are bad parents because an attack could always happen. Like, shut the fuck up.
Or then again, let's be really fair and assume it's only ever happened one other time. After all, MJ's line might just imply that it's happened once before, and obviously the fact that her baby's life was put in danger scared her, so she asked Peter to never let something like that happen again. That's not really how the scene seems to be framing it, as both he and MJ seem to almost laugh off what Peter just did as something quirky and cute.
Yes, the scene makes a joke out of it. If anything, this would imply that the mystery context, for which we know nothing about, wasn't actually that big of a deal. And MJ knows that Peter would not bring Mayday into a situation where he can't be sure that he can keep her as safe as possible, even if there's a slight risk to it.
But let's go with that. My point still stands that if there's apparently a risk of Mayday's life being in danger should she accompany Peter to this place, then he should stop fucking bringing her there.
Your point doesn't stand for shit. And you even know your own point doesn't stand for shit because of later in the video. But the film quite literally never established that the Spider HQ has ever even been attacked. So what the fuck are you even talking about?
However, it could also be argued that the fight being referred to happened here on Peter's Earth, unrelated to the Spider Society. Like, I don't know, maybe it was some random thing that Peter had to deal with while he was out with Mayday, so it really couldn't be helped. Again, though, even that amount of context...
You notice how he kind of just realized that the defense that I made would turn his argument on its ass? Well, now let's see him move his argument to a different place, because that previous one had no leg to stand on.
And that amount of context should really put into perspective for Peter just how dangerous this life can be now that he has a little one to look after. So maybe encouraging her at a very young age to swing around with webs and taking her along to meet all your cool new spider friends really isn't the best idea, because it might make her decide that she wants to follow in her dad's footsteps at an age where she is way too young to try to be a superhero.
So let me get this straight. Not only do you think it's out of character for Peter Parker to want his daughter to grow up saving lives and being a good person. With her great power coming great responsibility, just because there's a risk of danger, when the film frames it as the exact opposite, because Peter literally wants Mayday to grow up like Miles did. He wants her around these environments and to spend a lot of time with her doing stuff because of that. And you also say she's gonna go out and become a superhero at like a very young age, then you don't establish what you think that age will be. Do you think baby Mayday is just gonna go out there and fight crime? Well, I guess Peter should never leave Mayday's side, because if she can just sneak around the house and go wherever the hell she wants, then Peter should always be with her. I also want to ask, is it bad for police officers, military fighters, firefighters to bring their kids around work or their work life because there's a chance their kid might want to become like them? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And even with all that said, I still don't believe Peter cares enough to justify endangering Mayday, because you can make excuses for him bringing her along to the spider chase, but how exactly do you square away the fact that he decides to once again bring her into dangerous and unknown territory at the end of the film? Gwen shows up to recruit him into her mission to find Miles and help him stop Miguel, and that is an undertaking where Peter has no way of knowing what's in store. She showed up to his universe while he and Mayday are safe at home, and still he decided it would be totally fine to bring her along. He could have just left her there, but he didn't, because unlike many of the people trying to defend this, the film itself somehow doesn't seem to recognize that what Peter is doing here is fucked up. They seem to think it's cute.
At the end of the film, bringing Mayday still doesn't have any more of a risk than things I mentioned earlier. At the end of the movie, they're going to find Miles. I doubt Peter has any plans of getting into some crazy altercation where Mayday's life would realistically actually be in any kind of crazy danger. You keep conflating high risk and low risk as if they're the same fucking thing. And if that does happen, then Peter can just leave and put her back at home. We don't know what they're doing in Beyond the Spider-Verse. For all we know, they probably know where Miles is and knows they're going into territory where they know there's not going to be much danger. And the danger that they would probably most likely run into, Peter just wouldn't fight the other spider people. If he has Mayday, obviously. But that's not the situation he thinks he's walking into, and he would obviously mitigate any risk in the case that that might come to that, just like he did on the train. And you might say, oh, well, that might just mitigate Peter's fighting ability. Yes, it would, but again, he's trying to de-escalate things. And if he just so happens to run into some crazy villain, there is literally like 6 spider people right there that will be able to handle the job. In fact, he would probably want to plan out any kind of attack before doing any kind of like physical altercations, because even though all the people at the end of the movie might be a little shaky right now on the canon thing, I'm assuming they're probably gonna go more into that and, you know, ask Miles what they should do. What are we gonna do?
Serious damage is being dealt to one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, but it's alright, because as long as we can put this cute baby in a pivotal role in Beyond the Spider-Verse, we can sell a shit ton of toys once that movie comes out. So that makes it all fine.
What the fuck? What proof do you have that Mayday will play some massive role in Beyond the Spider-Verse? She doesn't even play a big role in Across the Spider-Verse. She's in the movie for like 15 minutes max, and I think I'm highballing that.
One thing I really love about this whole discussion is how many people keep trying to justify this by using the fact that he let Miles and Gwen help out in the first movie, despite the fact that they're both kids. But, you know, setting aside the fact that obviously there's a big difference in maturity and capability between teenagers and babies, you might also consider the fact that they aren't Peter's children.
So you think just because they aren't his children that he doesn't care? Yeah, because that really sounds like Spider-Man to me. Well, I mean, it does sound like one Spider-Man.
You're saying the lives of a billion strangers are more important than my loved ones?
Goodbye.
And he has absolutely no authority to tell them they can't be Spider-Man.
He absolutely does have the authority to tell them they can't be Spider-Man. However, what they choose to do is out of his control.
And even then, when Peter thinks Miles isn't ready to face Kingpin, he actively stops him from coming along, even at great personal cost to himself, since it would mean Miles won't be there to shut off the collider, so Peter will have to stay behind and do it instead, meaning he'll have no way of getting home and will eventually die from being in the wrong universe-itis.
Yes, I agree, he doesn't let Miles help with Kingpin because he doesn't think he's ready. But guess what? When Miles proves himself in that fight, Peter has a change of heart, and again wants Mayday to end up just like him. But also, bringing Mayday on a chase, which he can easily mitigate the risk of harm coming to her, isn't even remotely the same as the fight at the end of the Spider-Verse, so it's just a bad comparison. Now I'm gonna skip ahead in this video to the next point of criticism, but basically he then goes on about talking how Peter in this movie takes nothing seriously, so let's just skip to his first point and how that is.
In this movie, you get the distinct impression that Peter B. Parker does not give a single fuck. Like seriously, our very first scene with Peter has him swinging around, cracking jokes, and just being a goofball, while Miguel is trying to hold a serious conversation with Miles and Gwen. And I understand that he's trying to lighten the mood, but there's a big difference between that and what he's doing.
No, there really isn't much of a difference at all. When Peter arrives, Miguel is berating Miles in a harsh manner. Peter doesn't want this, so he attempts to lighten the mood. Peter literally makes jokes when he's fighting supervillains, and now you think it's a problem that he attempts to lighten the mood a little bit in an attempt to make things easier in telling Miles? I also want to add that he wants to catch up with Miles after not seeing him for so long, especially with what they're about to tell him.
Especially given the context of what's at stake and what revelation Miles is about to receive, which Peter fully knows about. It just makes him kind of a jackass when you think about it.
Yes, Peter knows about this, hence him trying to lighten the mood, and guess what? When Miguel actually starts explaining the canon to Miles, Peter takes it very seriously the whole time during the explanation. Literally in the clip that you show, Peter has a facial expression that expresses he's taking this seriously. You're just blatantly lying here.
He's trying to show off baby pictures and getting all annoyed when Miguel mentions how the multiverse is unraveling.
The fate of the multiverse.
You always lose me with that. You say, the fate of the multiverse, and my brain dies.
Which is just such an odd exchange. I thought so when I first watched the movie, but it took me a while to really place why. It's pretty obvious to me that the scene they seem to be trying to emulate from the first movie is this one here.
Or everyone's gonna die. That is what they always say. But there's always a little bit of time before everybody dies, and that's when I do my best work.
But while that moment is pretty funny and mostly played for laughs, the context surrounding this is what makes the exchange work so well. It isn't that Peter doesn't care about saving people, it's that he's at a point in his life where he's tired of shouldering all that responsibility by himself, of always being the one people look to sacrifice everything while everything around him falls apart.
With great power comes
Don't
great...
you dare finish that sentence. Don't do it. I'm sick of it.
He's not apathetic, he's just tired.
It's hilarious that you don't understand that both of these scenes communicate the same exact thing, even when both contexts are laid out. Peter is tired of Miguel always being so uptight and aggressive about things, but that doesn't mean he's not taking his job seriously.
One of the things I really love about the way he's handled in the first film is that almost every line of his has a double meaning, both in actual dialogue but also the tone in which it's delivered. The scene with him being hyperbolic about bread and his failure to deliver a fresh batch to MJ's table is really funny, but of course it's also clearly representative of what Peter most regrets in the world, something which he currently doesn't think he'll ever get a chance to put right because, again, at this point he believes he's gonna have to sacrifice himself and stay behind in 1610 so that the rest of the Spider team can get home. It's funny, but it's also sad, and that's Peter's entire character in Into the Spider-Verse.
I don't think that scene in the first movie is a problem because of the things that he just said. However, if we're running with his logic that he's putting across on Across the Spider-Verse, then you should have a problem with this scene because Peter is doing this while he knows this entire world could be destroyed soon if he doesn't hurry up.
That scene of him coming off like he doesn't care about people dying, it does not mean that he actually doesn't. In classic Peter Parker fashion, he's hiding his true feelings behind a quip or a joke, or a sarcastic lamentation of what is often an over-exaggerated declaration of the stakes.
Yes, I agree. And it's the same thing for Across the Spider-Verse. It's not like he actually doesn't care. It just looks like you have inconsistent standards.
Which, of course, on its own is already weird enough and completely out of character. But then you remember that what caused Miguel to become as radicalized as he is in this film is something Peter was there for. I actually somehow missed this on my first viewing and had to have it pointed out to me. But in the sequence where Miles has shown the footage of a universe collapsing after Miguel tried to slip into it and replace his variant, Peter was there for that. He bore witness to all those people dying while he could only stand there and watch helplessly. So I really don't like this idea that Peter isn't taking any of this seriously. And by the way, I don't think the excuse that he's trying to lighten the mood really works anyway, since he does the same thing later when the spider chase has already begun, shoving his phone in Miguel's face and trying to get him to take a picture of him and Mayday. Peter, the time for that has obviously passed. Are you actually fucking stupid? Also, hang on, does anyone else find it really weird and kind of insensitive that he keeps flaunting all this in front of Miguel? You know, the guy who is the way that he is because he tried to have a family once and lost everything. Again, something Peter fully knows. Like, seriously, dude, I'm happy for you that you rekindled things with your wife and you started that family, but read the fucking room?
No, the context for how Peter is acting that I've already explained still stands. And him asking Miguel to take the picture of him and Mayday is for the same reason. Just because he didn't lighten the mood earlier, again, doesn't mean he should just stop trying. Is a therapist stupid for trying to get someone to calm down multiple times in a session even though they keep having a tendency to get pissed off or break down an emotion? Is someone in a family stupid or insensitive for sending a picture of their children in a group chat that has another person who has lost their family in it? Or is someone stupid or insensitive for asking someone who lost their family in the past to take a picture of their family? Like, what the fuck is this line of thinking? And I don't know why you keep saying he's not taking any of this seriously. You're literally just fucking lying. Once again, the whole canon event conversation, he is taking seriously. When he talks to Miles during the chase, he is taking that seriously.
I mean, you'd think given where Peter was when we first met him, he'd have the particularly unique ability to understand some of what Miguel's going through and realize this is probably the last thing he wants constantly thrown in his face. Bringing your daughter to work with you and letting her crawl around on him while he's literally explaining to Miles that he lost his family is, tone deaf, to put it mildly. Though I suppose maybe it isn't that Peter doesn't care and really is just that he's stupid. The film seems to think so at any rate.
No, it would actually be the opposite, because when Peter was in that state in the first movie, he grew out of it through the help of Miles showing him things can be better, and things can be good even when you're down. Hence, having Peter end up where he is now. Also, what he just said isn't even true, because he claims that Peter is doing this while Miguel is explaining how he lost his family, but Miguel only mentions that minutes later during the canon event conversation. And Peter is taking that whole conversation seriously once again. And you say Peter is stupid for trying to lighten things up and make people happier. Okay.
You want to back me up?
Well, okay, Miguel, as a father of a daughter and the son of a mother...
Yeah, actually, stop talking.
Okay, duly noted.
Oh, I absolutely fucking hate this line. I'm actually getting to a point where I genuinely wonder if the people who wrote this movie are the same ones who wrote the first, because they do not seem to understand this character at all. Peter Parker is not a fucking pushover, as he's depicted several times in this movie, and he's not about to stand back and watch someone else treat the people he loves the way Miguel treats Gwen and Miles. I understand that he's in agreement with Miguel's stance on the canon, even though, to be honest, I'm having trouble figuring out if he still feels that way by the end of the movie, given that he went along with Gwen, but, you know, we'll see what they do with that, I guess. I even understand why Peter might agree with Miguel, given what he's witnessed, but that does not mean he's about to let him get away with the kinds of shit Miguel does here. Miles and Gwen are the two characters who mainly influenced Peter into giving it another shot with MJ and putting his life back together. They reminded him of what it means to be Spider-Man and to take a leap of faith when all hope seems lost and the effort seems futile. These two people mean so much to Peter that even if he believes Miguel is right, he should still be standing up for them right now, because that's just the kind of person that he is. But throughout the whole scene, he just stands back and lets Miguel force Gwen into the machine to send her home, and then gets told to fuck off after still wanting to be Team Miguel. I'm baffled. I'm genuinely baffled by this.
Peter literally knows how Miguel acts already, and he just saw what Miguel did to Gwen for pushing back against him. Why is it a problem that he's not risking the possibility of him also losing his wristband and not being able to do anything at all? Also, you say he's not trying to stand up for either of them, but he quite literally is. Why do you think he keeps trying to lighten the mood to get Miguel off of Miles' ass? And on the train, he's literally telling Miguel to go easy on him. And this isn't what we talked about. You say that the Peter B. you know would put his foot down and start fighting Miguel or some shit, like, listen here, Miguel. But Peter B. quite literally doesn't do that at all in the first movie. The only thing even remotely close is when he webs up Miles before going after Kingpin. And that's a completely different context that doesn't even remotely come close. And the reason that he joins Gwen and Miles aside by the end is something that I think SK explains really well in the video that he made about the movie, which I think you should all go watch, but I'm just gonna play a quick segment from that video.
Do you know for certain what happens if he breaks the canon?
Do you want to find out?
Gwen takes what Miles says into consideration and questions if Miguel's reasons are rational. Miguel gave up on defending his position to Miles and instead opted to imprison him.
Goodbye.
Gwen already felt that was out of line, and her gut was telling her that there was something wrong with what they were doing. Miguel breaks Gwen and Peter's trust by telling Miles that he was the original anomaly, when that goes against what they had talked about.
Yo, that's enough!
This isn't what we talked about!
It's a show of Miguel's willingness to act dishonestly in favor of his cause, which should raise red flags for those closely aware of this. He isn't fully transparent on what his intentions are, and Miguel also acts in a way that's noticeably more aggressive and forceful than he has ever been seen acting before, which starts to show layers of his character that haven't been seen before, as if his anger towards Miles has caused him to slip and worsen his image in their eyes. This motivates Gwen to question Miguel on his cause, and if he is even as certain as he claims to be. As opposed to giving a direct answer that proves that he is certain without a shadow of a doubt, he starts to walk in a threatening manner towards Gwen, as if he's trying to scare her into agreement rather than relying on actual reason. And to further escalate Gwen's frustration, he tells Jess that he was right at first to see her as a liability.
Tell him he's wrong.
He's not.
Similarly to Miles, Gwen feels betrayed. She knows how it feels. Gwen feels betrayed, as if Jess is going to allow her to be put back in the same desperate place she was before she was let in and given somewhere to belong. From Gwen's perspective, they should know why it'd be wrong to leave her behind, because they knew it was at the time they took her in.
You let him get away? I can't help you.
And what Gwen was afraid of came to pass. She was sent home by force, to be lost and alone, accepted by nobody. She finally understands how it felt for Miles. At that point, she is cemented in her belief that Miguel isn't acting reasonable, and shouldn't have been put in such a high regard as he was.
We are supposed to be the good guys.
Peter and Jess are noticeably uncomfortable by this. Jess's closest protege has been sent off to suffer alone. Peter feels that his friend has been wrongfully cast off for having rightful feelings of uncertainty for what Miguel is doing. What we thought could have been a working, healthy collaboration turned into a fallout. People are feeling betrayed left and right, left with questions on what the right thing is. Miguel angrily and assertively stands by his positions and pursues his hunt for Miles. Gwen is left anxious and lost upon returning to her world. Miles is left scared for who may be after him and for what's going to happen to his family and his neighborhood.
You think I'll be any good at this?
You're asking that now?
Peter goes back home with Mayday to reconsider all of his actions. As a mentor and a friend to Miles, as a hero, and as a father to Mayday. He asks MJ if he'll be any good at being a parent, and MJ reassures Peter that with how unique Mayday will be compared to everyone else, there will never be a strict guide for what the right choices will be in raising her, or being the hero Peter tries to be.
There's no playbook for raising someone like her, or being someone like you.
Peter and MJ are the first ones in their world to raise someone born with what Peter can do, so they can't just go by the commonly set rules by the world for how to raise someone. They'll have to improvise along the way, as if the unexpected will happen.
You just gotta make the right adjustments at halftime.
It's the same as making decisions as a hero like Spider-Man, versus a normal person with common everyday problems. In listening to MJ's advice, he's now questioning his agreement to Miguel's mindset of controlling and strictly abiding by the rules he sets. Peter never went by any kind of strict guide or expectations to teach Miles. Miles' growth came as a product of the unexpected happening. Peter remembered that Miles showed Peter that he can do both, in spite of Peter strictly insisting one of them had to die, and this pushed Peter to want to have Mayday after Miles gave him his second chance.
How do I know I'm not gonna mess it up again?
You won't.
Right. Hate to leap of faith.
Peter realized that it gave into fear, just as Miguel did, which he almost did in Into the Spider-Verse. He realizes that MJ is right, that he shouldn't go into parenting or heroism under the mindset that the future is already set in stone.
And this is pretty much the end of what I have to respond to with Sheev's video. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if any of you would like to support me on Patreon. I hope you all enjoyed, and yeah.